Galnet News. Your galaxy in focus. 15th of March, 3302. Our top story today. The Imperial-aligned 13th Legion have been infiltrating the Beta Hydri system this week in an attempt to blockade the supply of vital materials for the Federal People's Navy project to construct a new Farragut-class battlecruiser. According to Imperial sources, the project is seen as a weapon of mass destruction that could be deployed upon peaceful Imperial systems with little warning. The 13th Legion declined to comment on the operation, but an intercepted communication apparently from one of its members has found its way to the press, in which the pilot states, "That fascist Hudson is threatening the lives of our Imperial brothers and sisters with this call for a new weapon of mass destruction for his fleet. Any ship I see in Beta Hydri that intends to deliver materials for this project is going to get vaporized." The project, which began on the 10th of March, asked pilots to deliver materials to the construction site in order to create a new capital vessel, and still has 2 days left to run, but fears are spreading in the Federation about the lack of availability of these materials given the scale of the blockade that is in effect. Reports suggest that the blockade has resulted in the destruction of up to 300 Federal vessels, from supply ships to combat vessels, and the galactic message boards have been filled with commanders up in arms about the threat posed. Some messages have been on a different note, however, with a Commander Cax claiming that Sirius Corporation has a right to sell to whomever it pleases, whether that's Imperial, Federal, or otherwise. Commander Tenderizer criticized the 13th Legion's declaration of Hudson as a warmongering dictator, stating that he was democratically elected and that constructing a new vessel is not an act of war. Meanwhile, a Commander Benevolent compared President Hudson to Donald Trump, an obscure politician from Earth's 21st century, calling them both cheap corporate vulgarities, and reminding his readers that a good Fed is a dead Fed. Lord Commander of the 13th Legion, Nightshady, was quick to point out that he has only lost 4 ships in open combat, hinting at the combat prowess of the Legion, and challenging those who fly the Federal flag to test his organization's strength. The project still has 2 days to run, and relies on enough Federal supplies reaching Beta Hydri in order to allow the completion of the vessel, which is high on President Hudson's priorities, but it might not be as straightforward as he had hoped given the strong Imperial resistance in the area. More information on the emerging pan-galactic legal case now, in which Chef Oliver Gordon was sued by the Pan-Galactic Mining Corporation over his restaurant's use of their name. This report is from Commanders Matsoff and Gann. Over to correspondent Chip Washington.
Controversial chef Oliver Gordon was humiliated yesterday when he lost his battle over the Pan-Galactic trademark. The Cordon Bleu has been forced to close his restaurant to meet spiraling legal costs. The case began when the Pan-Galactic Mining Corporation issued a writ demanding that Gordon change the name of his Pan-Galactic restaurant and pay substantial damages for infringing on intellectual property. A spokesperson for the Pan-Galactic Mining Corporation released the following statement, saying, quote, "The Pan-Galactic Mining Corporation has a right to defend its brand, but we are disappointed that Chef Gordon did not accept our offer to become our preferred catering partner." Gordon gave a characteristically colorful response.
"I am the greatest artist chef, and I will not degrade my art for anyone. I'd rather eat a pretty hot dog than work for Pan-Galactic making sandwiches for business seminars."
Galnet asked the Galaxy citizens for their reaction on whether Mr. Gordon has the right to name his restaurant what he pleases, and what they thought of the idea of serving barnacles up as haute cuisine. Many were unwilling to speak out on the issue, but one pilot, who goes by the name of Commander Real, had this to say.
As a proud Alliance businessman, I don't begrudge another for his choice of product. However, personally, I would share this advice. Caveat patronum, which means patron beware.
In racing news, with less than a week until the spring break race, the Buckyball Racing Club is running a short midweek madness event to get racers warmed up. The so-called Buckyball Rally is a fuel-restricted race from Bucky Ring in NLTT 57216 via Bull Dock in CD 37641 to Raleigh Orbital in Ross 720. The race is open to all, but will run for just 3 days, starting today. An update now on the fate of Professor Ishmael Palin. Over to Chip Washington.
It has now been over a week since Professor Ishmael Palin and his research team were rescued from a criminal syndicate known as the Blue Hand Gang. Since then, there's been considerable speculation about who might be responsible for the abduction. Although the Blue Hand Gang has been known to trade in human cargo, to date it has not been connected to any kidnapping operations. It is therefore assumed that the gang merely purchased Professor Palin and his colleagues from those responsible for the abduction. With Professor Palin now having made a full recovery, he released a statement concerning the nature of his ordeal.
To describe the experience as traumatic would be an understatement. One moment our ship was cruising through space, the next, all hell was breaking loose. A klaxon sounded, and our vessel banked sharply. Then I heard an explosion and peered out of the viewport just in time to see our escort ships disappear in a bowl of flame. It was immediately clear to me that our assailants were no mere pirates. I felt our ship slow and then stop, as it was drawn into the belly of our attacker's vessel. Then the hull was carved open, and a handful of black-clad figures poured in. I was unconscious within moments. I awoke in a darkened room, strapped to a chair. They interrogated me for days, although it was only later that I was able to establish how much time had passed, as it was impossible to keep track of days in my windowless cell. My interrogators were careful never to show me their faces, but I remember the nature of the interrogation clearly enough. Why was I researching the unknown artifacts? Who had I shared the information with? I explained that most of what I knew was already a matter of public record, but that did not satisfy them. They were convinced I was withholding something. I soon realized my abductors intended to kill me. Presently, I was given an injection, and I felt darkness descend. I assumed I had been poisoned, but I now realize I'd simply been given a sedative. The next thing I knew, I was lying in a bed in the medial wing at Wilkes Orbital. I do not know the name of the organization, but I know what they represent: control, oppression, and the obviation of civil liberties. Such organizations have existed for millennia. The banner under which they march is immaterial.
When Professor Ishmael Palin and his team disappeared en route to Maya B1BA, research into meta-alloys was brought to a near standstill, with only the Canonn Interstellar Research Group continuing to investigate the mysterious material. But the recent reports indicate that research has continued in Professor Palin's absence under the helm of Leah Tantaga, a molecular chemist based at Obsidian Orbital. She said, "We've known for quite a while that the ongoing technical issues are the result of a molecular interference from the unknown artifacts. What we now know is that meta-alloys can be used to neutralize this interference. In their raw form, the meta-alloys aren't all that effective, and the process of using them to create materials that can counter the artifact's dangerous self-repair mechanism hasn't yet been perfected, but we're definitely on the right path." In response to this development, authorities at starports affected by the technological plague have opened their markets to the sale of meta-alloys, no doubt hoping to receive further quantities of the much-needed material and return their outposts to normality. But the harvesting of meta-alloys continues to prove controversial, with some saying that the so-called barnacles from which the materials are derived, and which are destroyed in the harvesting process, should be protected. This report from Commander Edgar Starwalker of the Interstellar Press. Dissent against the Pegasi pirate war grew more insistent this week as pressure group Peace in Pegasi, or PIP, staged protests on Imperial worlds. Since military action began in 3301, Imperial public opinion has shifted on continued intervention against the Kumo crew, with 3 new Federal Navy bases opening on the edge of Imperial space at Karpaka, Konkante, and LPM-229, opinion has hardened against what some see as a reckless foreign adventure. At a rally on Cubio, PIP organiser Ibuk Lorraine criticised the squandering of naval resources spent tackling the Crumo crew, saying, "The argument that many billions of Imperial citizens are threatened by Archon Delane doesn't stand up to scrutiny. We have seen vast flows of refugees fleeing the war zone. The number of Imperials under the yoke of the Kumo crew is now vanishingly small. No doubt emboldened by our Navy's complacency at home, the Federation is now posturing at our doorstep. This can no longer be tolerated. We demand an immediate end to the Pegasi pirate war." Responding to protests in his home system of Concante, leading patron Alvin Holtzman offered support for the movement, saying, "President Hudson's expansionism forces me to agree with the sentiment of the crowds. The heart of our empire could soon be threatened unless serious thought is taken to the disposition of our forces. I will make a statement later this week on the matter." It is understood that a Senate committee has been planned to discuss the future of the Pegasi pirate war. A report now from Statera Eleshanar of the Interstellar Press. The appointment of Senator Denton Patrius to the post of Admiral of the Fleet by the Emperor last week has been met with a mixture of speculation and criticism from high Imperial society. General Anthony Corvus, who previously disparaged Patrius's handling of the Emperor's Dawn campaign, stated, "This is a clear conflict of interests. The Senator already commands a private fleet. Will he promote his own officers to leading positions in the Imperial Navy now?" An anonymous palace source responded, "Corvus is generally known amongst court circles as a sciolist with the mere pretense to wisdom. Even the lowliest serf knows that every senator is required to submit to the feudal duty they owe to their liege lord at any time when called upon. The Emperor makes all final decisions about top military appointments." A few royal commentators have wondered aloud whether the elevation of the senator denotes an attempt to confer appropriate status for a different manner of elevation, but their remarks have been widely rubbished by supporters of the Emperor, who point out that Her Imperial Majesty is in no rush to address the succession. A report on what's being called the Faragut mystery, from Commander Tyrant Shadowstalker. An official inquiry from the Congressional Oversight Committee has been launched after reports surfaced of a pirate-aligned Farragut battlecruiser striking out at Federation battlegroups in the LHS 3447, Fulium, and HIP 16996 systems. The inquiry will also investigate unconfirmed reports of a rogue battlecruiser outside Federation space in the Maya system. Speaking under condition of anonymity, a source within the closed-door hearing said, "The scans said it was a Farragut and the Navy said it was a Farragut, but it's not one of ours and it had no clear identification code." And this report from Commander Lord Zoltan. Verity Gavroche, official correspondent for the Canonn Interstellar Research Group, has spoken to Dr. Arcannon about an exciting new discovery. Dr. Arcannon stated, "Over the weekend, I was contacted by a Commander Engalo, who told me he'd observed an interaction between the unknown artifacts and the barnacle flowers, the source of the meta-alloys. Both the barnacles and the artifacts have features we've nicknamed fireflies, bright specks of light that appear to move of their own volition. Engalo has observed that if you place an artifact near a barnacle, their respective fireflies start flying around together. This continues until the unknown artifact is removed. I can't thank Commander Engalo enough for bringing this to my attention. With the new lab the community is helping us build, we'll soon be able to observe this behavior under controlled conditions." That's the Galnet news for today. Tune in next time to keep your galaxy in focus.